Welcome to our channel, where ancient narratives unfold to reveal the profound connection between history, mythology, and theology. Long before the devil was ever imagined, ancient civilizations feared something far older beings that did not just drink blood, but devoured life itself. These were not caste shamans hiding in shadows. They were gods, spirits, and primal forces worshipped and feared across the world. From forgotten Mesopotamian night demons to bloodthirsty deities of ancient empires, their stories have been buried in time. Tonight, we uncover 10 ancient vampires older than the devil himself. If you were drawn to darker mythology and forbidden legends, you were in the right place. And thank you for watching. Number 1, Lilitu, the night that hungered. Long before later, traditions reshaped her into singular figure. The Lilitu were known in ancient Mesopotamian belief as a class of night spirits, restless, unseen, and deeply feared. Emerging from Sumerian and Akkadian texts, these entities were said to move like the wind through darkness, sleeping silently into homes while the world slept. The Lilitu were not bound by morality or divine law. They existed as a force of nature, like a disease, famine, or a storm, drawn to the vulnerable edges of human life. Ancient writings describe them as preying upon pregnant women, newborns, and lone travelers, feeding not just on blood, but on life essence itself. To early civilizations, this essence was inseparable from breath, vitality, and the unseen energy that sustained existence. Unlike later vampire myths, the Lilitu were not cast mortal or indeed beings. They were something far older. Primitive spirits and buried that line between demon and deity. Their hunger was not punishment, nor was it driven by malice. It was instinctive, internal, and woven into their very nature. Protective charms and incantations were often used to ward them off, suggesting that belief in the Lilitu was widespread and deeply ingrained in daily life. Their presence reflected a world where the night itself was alive, where darkness was not empty, but filled with unseen entities watching, waits, and feeding. In many ways, the Lilitu represent one of humanity's earliest attempts to understand the terror of vulnerability, the fear that something invisible could enter your space, your body, your life, and take it from you before you ever walk. Number 2, Lamastu, the devourer of the innocent. Among the oldest and most feared entities of ancient Mesopotamia was Lamastu, a being who stood apart even among demons. Unlike many malevolent spirits who served higher powers, Lamastu acted entirely on her own will. She was not summoned. She came when she chose. Feared especially by mothers, Lamastu was believed to prey on the most vulnerable, unborn children and newborn infants. Ancient texts describe her creeping into home and night, sleeping past doors and defenses to feed. She was said to drink the blood of babies and gnaw on their bones, leaving behind illness, nightmares, and death. To ancient people, she was not just a monster. She was an explanation for a tragedy and struck without warning. Her appearance reflected her unnatural nature. She was often depicted with a lion's head, donkey's teeth and ears, and long figures tipped with talons, and the feet of a bird. Sometimes she was shown nothing animal while standing atop a donkey. Disturbing invasion of motherhood itself, natural twisted into predation. What makes Lamastu especially significant in the context of ancient vampirism is a direct relationship with blood and life force. She did not simply kill, she consumed vitality. Protective amulets, incantations, and ritual were used to ward her off, suggesting her presence was deeply embedded in everyday fear. Lamastu represents one of humanity's earliest attempts to understand the fragility of life. In a world without medicine or clear causes of death, she becomes the face of the unseen horror, the Devourer who fed not out of evil, but out of an ancient, insatiable hunger. Number 3. Asanbosam. I say the Asanbosam. The tree dwelling drinker. Deep within the dense forest of West Africa, particularly in the tradition of the Ashanti people of modern Ghana, lurks a creature that embodies the law and tamed teller of nature itself, the Asanbosam. Unlike the refined vampires of later folklore, this being is brutal, primitive, and inseparable from the wilderness it inhabits. The Asanbosam is often described as having iron teeth and long, hook like a feet, which it uses to hang silently from tree branches. It waits in complete stillness, blending into the shadows of the forest canopy, where, when an unsuspecting traveler passes below, the creature drops with terrifying speed, capturing its victim before they can react. Its feeding is swift and merciless, draining blood and leaving behind lifeless body discarded like a prey. What makes Asanbosam particularly haunting is its deep connection to the forest. In many African belief systems, the wilderness is not empty, it is alive, aware, and often dangerous. The Asanbosam represents this idea in its pulsate form. The forest itself, as a predator, it does not stalk cities or villages. It remains where humanity is weakest, alone, surrounded by towering trees and endless silence. Unlike later vampire myth, the Asanbosam is not cast human or undead spirit. It is something older, something elemental. It does not seduce or deceive, it simply hurts. In this way, it reflects one of humanity's oldest fears, that beyond the safety of civilization, something ancient is waiting, watching, and hungry. Number 4. Ekimmu or Ekimmu, the angry dead without burial. In this shadowy belief of ancient Mesopotamia, few entities were as feared or as pitied as the Ekimmu. Unlike a god of demons, the Ekimmu were once humans. They were the restless dead, souls denied proper burial rites, forgotten by living and cast adrift between worlds. To ancient Mesopotamians, burial was not just a tradition, it was survival beyond death. Without rituals, offering, and remembrance, a soul could not transition peacefully into afterlife. Instead, it became something earth, something hollow. The Ekimmu were described as wandering spirit consumed by an endless, glowing hunger, but this was not hunger for food. It was hunger for life itself. Invisible and intangible, they were believed to attach themselves to the living, draining vitality slowly. Illness, fatigue, and unexplained suffering were often blamed on their presence. In some accounts, the Ekimmu did not even remember who they once were. They were driven purely by instinct, a desperate need to fill the void left by their incomplete death. This makes them one of the earliest examples of a spiritual vampire, feeding not on blood alone, but on essence, breath, and life force. What makes the Ekimmu especially haunting is implication behind them. Anyone could become one, not through sin or curse, but through neglect. To be forgotten was to risk becoming a predator for the living. In this way, the Ekimmu revealed a deeply human fear that death is not end, but transformation into something hungry and unseen. Number 5. The Jiangshi, the breath stealer. I say, number 5, the Jiangshi, the breath stealer. In ancient Chinese folklore, the Jiangshi is one of the most unsettling forms of undead, often called the open vampire. Though it's true, nature runs far deeper than that name suggests. Unlike Western vampires that drink blood, the Jiangshi feeds on qi, the vital life force that flows through every living being. To lose qi is not just to weaken, it is to wither, to fade, to die from within. The Jiangshi is typically described as a reanimated corpse, stiff in movement due to rigor mortis, forcing it to hop forward with outstretched arm. Its appearance is both airy and symbolic. Pale, lifeless skin, long nails, and something dressed in burial garments from ancient dynasties. But its horror lies not in how it looks, but in what it takes. These entities are said to arise when proper burial rituals are neglected, when a soul cannot rest, or when darker spiritual imbalance corrupts the boundary between life and death. In this way, the Jiangshi is not simply a monster. It is a consequence, a cosmic error. What makes the Jiangshi especially ancient in its origin is its connection to early Chinese beliefs about harmony. Life depended on balance between body and spirit, even and earth. When that balance broke, something unnatural emerged. The Jiangshi does not hunt out of cruelty. It feeds because it must, draining qi from the living or to sustain its unnatural existence. Victims often grow weak, pale, and lifeless, mirroring the very creature that feeds upon them. In this sense, the Jiangshi represents a different kind of vampirism, one not of blood, but of essence. A reminder that sometimes the most terrifying predator are those that cannot be seen, only felt as your life slowly slips away. Number 6. Sekhmet, the goddess who drank humanity. I said number 6, Sekhmet, the goddess who drank humanity. Among the most terrifying figure in ancient mythology stands Sekhmet, a goddess of war, plague, and divine vengeance in ancient Egypt. Unlike later vampire legends, her thirst was not born from a curse. It was commanded by gods themselves. According to myth, when humanity rebelled against the sun god Ra, he unleashed Sekhmet as an instrument of punishment. What followed was not justice, but near annihilation. Sekhmet descended upon the earth with unstoppable fury, slaughtering humans in vast numbers, yet it was not just death she delivered. She drank their blood, becoming consumed by an uncontrollable hunger. Her bloodlust grew so intense that she no longer disguised between the guilty and the innocent. Humanity itself stood on the brink of extinction. Even Ra realized he had unleashed something beyond control. To stop her, the gods devised a desperate plan. They flooded the land with beer dyed red to resemble blood. Sekhmet, driven by her insatiable thirst, drank deeply, believing it to be the lifeblood of her victims. The drink intoxicated her, easing her rage and bringing her rampage to an end. Sekhmet's story reveals a chilling truth. Even divine beings could become enslaved by hunger for blood. She was not undead, nor cursed. She was a goddess whose nature borrowed the line between protector and destroyer. In this way, Sekhmet stands as one of the earliest blood gods, a being whose thirst was powerful enough to threaten all humanity. Number 7, the Striges, the original night feeders. Long before the image of a cloaked vampire emerged from European folklore, ancient Mediterranean culture whispered about something far more primitive: the Striges. These creatures, known in early Greek and later Roman tradition, were feared as night-dwelling entities that preyed upon the most vulnerable. Often described as monstrous, bird-like beings with piercing cries, the Striges were said to descend silently under the cover of darkness. Their preferred victims were infants and the defenseless, whose life force was believed to be the purest and easiest to consume. Unlike later vampires, they did not charm or seduce, they hunted. The name itself is believed to be linked to screeching owls, creatures long associated with death and ill omens, but the Striges were more than animals. They were something supernatural, hovering between spirit and flesh. Some accounts even suggest they could take human form, blending into shirt before revealing their true nature at night. Their feeding was often described in chilling terms: drinking blood, draining vitality, and leaving behind lifeless bodies. In this way, they represent one of the earliest clear expressions of vampirism in the ancient world. What makes the Striges particularly significant in their influence? Over time, their legend evolved and spread, shaping later European myth of vampire and night demons. They are in many ways the ancestor of the creatures we recognize today. The Striges remind us that the fear of something watching, waiting, and feeding in life, in the darkness, is not modern. It is ancient, instinctive, and deeply human. Number 8. Camazotz, the bat god of death. In the shadowed depths of ancient Mesoamerican mythology, few figures are as chilling as Camazotz, a terrifying bat that whose very name translates to death bat, originating from the tradition of the Maya civilization. Camazotz was not merely a creature of the night, but a divine executioner tied to sacrifice, darkness, and the underworld. He is most famously described in the sacred text known as the Popol Vuh, where he resides in a deadly realm called the House of Bats, a nightmarish chamber filled with laser-winged horrors. Within this domain, Camazotz strikes swiftly and without warning. In one outing tale, he decapitates a hero, demonstrating his role as an agent of sudden, violent death. Unlike later vampire legends, Camazotz does not seduce or stalk, he hunts. His bat form is deeply symbolic. In ancient culture, bats were creatures of liminality, existing between night and day, life and death. This made Camazotz a perfect embodiment of transition, the moment where life is violently taken. Though not always depicted drinking blood directly, his association with bats, sacrifice, and death strongly aligns him with other vampiric archetypes. He represents a divine hunger, not just for blood, but for life itself. In many ways, Camazotz is not a monster born of darkness. In many ways, Camazotz is not a monster born of darkness. He is the darkness, ancient, sacred, and merciless. Number 9, the Vetala, the corpse that feeds and speaks. In the shadowy depths of ancient Indian folklore, the Vetala stands as one of the most unsettling proto-vampiric entities ever conceived. Neither fully alive nor truly dead, the Vetala is a spirit that inhabits corpses, ruminating them into thinking, moving vessels of airy intelligence. Unlike mindless undead, the Vetala is cunning, aware, and often disturbingly articulate. It is said to dwell in cremation ground and desolate places, clinging to lifeless bodies like a parasite, Once inside, it gains control, speaking through the corpse, moving it at will, and sometimes luring the living into deadly encounters. But what makes the Vetala especially haunting is its relationship with life force. In various traditions, it is believed to feed not just on flesh, but on the vitality of the living, draining energy, weakening victims, and leaving behind a sense of spiritual emptinesses. This places it is firmly within the realm of ancient vampiric archetypes, where consumption goes beyond blood into the very essence of existence. Perhaps most famously, the Vetala appears in the ancient collection Vetala Pachavimashanti, where it engages in a series of riddles and moral dilemmas with a king. This portrayal reveals something even more disturbing. It is not just a predator, but a thinker, being capable of reasoning and manipulation. The Vetala represents a deeper fear than mere death. The idea that even after the body dies, something else may take control and hunger through it. Number 10, and that is our last. Number 10, the Nephilim, the Devourer of ancient world. In early biblical and pre-biblical traditions, the Nephilim are described as a giant, being born from mysterious union of divine, son of God, and human woman. But beyond their ambitious origin lies something far more disturbing. Their reputations are Devourers. Unlike ordinary humans or even kings of old, the Nephilim are portrayed as insatiable. Ancient interpretations suggest they consumed everything within reach. Livestock, harvests, and eventually human flesh. Their hunger was not symbolic, it was cosmic, a force of imbalance that disrupted the natural order of the world. Some later traditions and mythic expansions describe them as beings whose appetites could never be satisfied. The more they consumed, the larger and more destructive they become in this sense. They embody an archetype of vampirism, not through blood drinking alone, but through endless consumption of life itself. What makes the Nephilim especially unsettling in their position between worlds? They are neither fully divine nor fully human. They exist in a corrupted middle state, where power and hunger merge into something unstable and dangerous. In this way, they reflect a deeper fear found across ancient cultures, that forbidden unions between realms of existence produce monsters of imbalance. Some scholars interpret the Nephilim not as literal giants, but as a symbolic representation of ancient tyrants of warrior clans whose violence seemed inhuman to early storyteller. Others view them as misty echoes of forgotten beings erased by time and written scripture. Regardless of interpretation, the Nephilim endure as one of the earliest images of overwhelming, consuming power, entities whose very presence drains and dominates life around them. In the broader mythology of ancient vampires, they stand as Devourers on a colossal scale, not merely feeding on blood, but on civilization itself. So, what if vampires were never just monsters, but echoes of something ancient, something divine, something we were never meant to fully understand? These forgotten blood gods and primitive beings remind us that long before the devil, there were anger far older and far more terrifying. And maybe there are even darker myths waiting to be uncovered. Don't forget to like, subscribe, to share, and comment. Please, you are free to ask a question according to that story. We are ready to answer all questions, or you are free to ask any myth you like to know. We will react. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.